Most musicians practice as if someone is grading them or watching them, or you've got this invisible audience. It's nice if the invisible audience is complimentary to you, and then if you screw up, you sort of mentally forgive yourself and continue on playing for this invisible audience. So who are you playing for when you practice, and why are you practicing? Clarity in why you're playing music is very key to informing your practice and performance and composition and improvs and all that. So are you doing it to really be a consistent musician, or are you doing it as a hobby? Either is fine. For me personally, when I practice every day versus when it's periodic, every few days, even though that's still pretty consistent, I feel much more at ease and more creative, less judgmental about myself, about mistakes and such. It's harder if you're struggling with a section or a piece and knowing you're not going to get to it for another week. There's a much greater amount of pressure on you than if you know you're just going to go back at it again tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow. A lot of us deviate into these fantasies and we tend to play things that we're good at over and over again, which is great, but when that is replacing the stuff we need to work on, then it becomes more of a strength-based addiction. We talk about, in psychology, they talk about arrested development, and people kind of assume that that means you come up against something you're not good at. But really, it's the opposite. You kind of get addicted to doing things you are good at, and that prevents you from even attempting anything outside that comfortable little sphere of influence. So here's some advice for practice. It's probably the only unique advice in this whole video, and that is, don't warm up with scales. I'm not saying don't practice scales and arpeggios and all that exercises and stuff. I'm saying don't warm up with them. Whenever you pick up your instrument, or sit down at it, or stand up with it, whatever, however you do it, start by playing something totally cold. Something you know, mix it up. Play something you don't know that well. Play the most difficult thing you can imagine. Try that cold first. Of course, don't injure yourself. Save your warm-ups for later, and there's a real practical reason for this. When I was younger and cooler and was at parties a lot, there was usually an acoustic guitar nearby, and it was nice when people would pass it around and someone could play their own stuff, they could play other people's stuff. Not once did anyone pick up the guitar and go, hold on, I gotta do my scales first, I gotta make sure it's all, no one's waiting to hear your scales, your drills, your warm-up routine. There's a selfish reason for this too. If you are well prepared in playing things cold, you can blow people's minds on the spot. It's very practical and selfish and fun to have a little sort of backlog of songs you can play at a moment's notice. Bonus points if they're your own and others. I know not everyone feels the need to compose and you like to learn other people's. That's great too. If you memorize songs you can perform at a moment's notice, then people really take you seriously as a musician. I'm sure maybe many of you have gone to open mic nights where every single person who takes the stage starts off with this long disclaimer. They go, oh, I meant to practice this more. Oh, I played this really good the other day. It probably won't. They're trying to, they're genuinely, of course, extremely nervous, and they're trying to precede forgiveness. They're basically saying, imagine what this song would sound like if it was really frickin' good. Instead, I'm going to give you this. So don't be that person. You don't need to make disclaimers. Now, for composing your own pieces, what is really composition? I think the best sort of definition, at least for me, is it's just kind of like really slow motion controlled improvisation. Usually, I don't have an idea beforehand when I go to compose something. I just putz around until something jumps out at me that's worth keeping. And I like this approach because it gets me out of the way. It gets this ego out of the way that wants to do something brilliant and amazing that makes everyone cry and gets me billions of dollars. The odd thing is that I can play something that I'd played 100 times before and would easily ignore, like a certain progression or a type of riff or something, and then for some reason it grabs my attention. And that's what I listen for, is this pull. Something just pulls at you, and then you just kind of unravel it, and it might turn into a complete riff or a complete progression, and then you just keep doing that. You play with, once you have that solid thing, you just putz around till you find something else. Maybe they connect, maybe they don't. Sometimes I will build most of the way through something and just feel stuck. And I'll have to compose something entirely different before coming back to that other thing. And I think this is a very worthwhile practice because I don't want to force the thing to be done. I don't give myself composition deadlines. I've never had a commission, so I realize a working composer has to think of this a little differently. For me, I have always been much happier being very hard on myself when you know it's not right, even if it sounds right, even if it feels quasi-right, and then when it actually works, there's this almost like universal pop, this palpable relief that just, there it is. And I think that is worth waiting for, even if you have to abandon something. Be patient and experiment, and don't be afraid to take things apart and try them in different areas. The fact that you have a bunch of unfinished little snippets of things is part of the process and not a deviation. It's not, these are all my failures. It's, this is my library, and maybe this little part was ready, but the rest of the stuff that needs to go around it isn't ready yet from wherever it comes from. I just describe it as listening, like you're just listening for it, and you are an imperfect filter. But the more you listen, the more you get out of your own way. So I'm pretty new to the practice of improvising. It's a thing I have to force myself to be consistent with because the judge in my head really wants to hurt me more than anything. But it holds up this unbelievably impossible idea of perfection. But for improvisation training, the simpler you keep it, the longer, the better you're going to be. If you can be creative in this extremely limited environment, and everyone else needs the entire world to even be creative a little bit, you are automatically surpass them. No matter what your instrument is start slow and add one thing until you're comfortable with that, then add another thing, and then another thing. I've come up with a thing, and I'm going to start posting these. I call it the Adjective Game, and this was based off an interview I heard with pianist Dan Tepfer. He just gave this off-the-cuff remark in an interview. He said, well, why not just improvise by keeping the word spiky in mind? And so then it occurred to me, well, I could just use another adjective. So at the end of every practice, whether I'm practicing guitar or piano, I go to the adjective generator and just pick one, and I improvise for 1 minute on that. And I try and keep it simple. What's nice about the adjective is that it immediately gives you a feel, is that you immediately kind of think of something, and then so I try and stick within that little something. So every piece of advice here has really been about the same thing. A lot of times we approach music from this ego perspective. The most damage I have ever done to other people and myself in my life is when I've been the most self-absorbed. So I've been trying to get out of my own way. And getting out of your own way in practice will allow your practice to grow when you don't imagine there's this panel of people judging your every mistake. And when you're composing, you don't have this imaginary panel of people telling you it sucks or you telling you that it sucks. Like, if you keep going, something new will occur. Just keep listening. It's all out there. These judges in your head are not making you better. They're actually standing between you and playing something that actually sounds like you.